An elite inspector thrown into the rotten depths of the Marine Corps. He is treated inhumanely and wallows in the mire of entrenched corruption, determined to survive by becoming predator rather than prey. He finally targets the heart of the cancer and embarks on a mission of surgical precision. The Marine Corps Inspector General's office at Quantico resembled a morgue. Documents were stacked with clinical precision like bodies awaiting autopsy, and the investigator's eyes held a detached calm of coroners. Among them, Major Daniel Chen's gaze was particularly penetrating. He was a forensic specialist in uncovering corruption, earning him the nickname the Surgeon. Once he made his incision, no corrupt organization survived. That afternoon, Brigadier General Marcus Stone summoned him. A living legend in the Marine Corps and head of the Inspector General's office, Stone pointed to a small island circled in red on the map, an isolated outpost on the Pacific coast, part of the 2nd Marine Expeditionary Force. The stench of rot emanates from there. Stone's voice was gravelly. Camp Scorpion. The commanding officer is Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Webb. Camp Scorpion was renowned as the roughest unit in the Marine Corps. Rumors surrounded Webb, embezzlement, personnel corruption, even conscripted Marines for private labor. But all remained whispers. There was no evidence. A complaint was submitted, Stone continued. A father found his son's diary after the Marine died mysteriously at Camp Scorpion. It was filled with nothing but the word hell, written repeatedly. Stone's eyes gleamed like surgical steel. You must go. The operations officer position will become vacant. It's a false transfer. Major Chen of the Inspector General's office dies here. There, you'll be just another operations officer. No one must know your true identity. Chen saluted. What must I find? Find every piece of corruption. Fuel, ammunition, supplies, even the Marines' human rights. You must become our surgeon. Chun packed his gear. Combat uniform, boots, a tiny digital recorder, and miniature camera. Erasing all traces of his career, he boarded a transport helicopter bound for Camp Scorpion on a foggy evening. The base sat on black volcanic rock, overlooking the Pacific. Stepping off a landing pad, Chen felt like he was entering a predator's maw. The air reeked of salt, metal, and decay. The site was more desolate than expected. Peeling paint, rusted razor wire, worn uniforms scattered carelessly. It resembled a prison camp more than a Marine installation. His first encounter with Lieutenant Colonel Webb took place in an opulent office, contrasting sharply with the base's decay. Webb grinned broadly, but his smile was hollow as a taxidermy predator. So you're Major Chen from headquarters? You look exactly as disappointing as I've heard. Chen portrayed his incompetent officer mask perfectly. Please take care of me, Colonel. I'm still learning. This isn't a classroom, Major. This is the jungle where the weak become prey. The office door opened, revealing Sergeant Major Robert Kane, a mountain of man whose handshake resembled a sledgehammer. I'm Sergeant Major Kane. I'll be watching how Major Chen adapts. Kane's examination felt predatory. Chen recognized him as Webb's enforcer, the kingdom's attack dog. Kane gave Chen a perfunctory tour filled with praise for the colonel's achievements. But Chen observed the reality. Equipment stripped of valuable parts, inadequate food supplies, yet everything perfectly accounted for on paper. In a corner of the parade ground, Marines were digging, clearly working on Webb's private property, not military training. Chen's false transfer succeeded. He portrayed complete incompetence, dozing during briefings, submitting copied training plans. Webb and Kane's guard dissipated as they viewed him as harmless decoration. The eruption came during Monday morning formation. Webb ascended the platform and fixed his predatory gaze on Chun. Major Chun, your hair is longer than regulations. It was clearly nitpicking. Public humiliation designed to crush Chen's spirit and demonstrate Webb's absolute authority. Kane emerged with clippers. Webb roughly grabbed Chen's shoulder and began shaving his hair himself. With mechanical buzzing, hair fell to the ground. Chen clenched his fists until blood flowed, but remained motionless, staring directly into Webb's eyes with cold determination for revenge. Webb hesitated at that stare, then cut more viciously. The hair was butchered unevenly. Now you're starting to look like a Marine. Webb tossed the clippers down. This isn't some greenhouse like headquarters. Webb had been suspicious from the beginning. This was a calculated test of Chen's reaction. After the degrading haircut, Chen encountered Lieutenant James Park, a young officer with eyes full of pity, guilt, and fear. That night, Chen whispered his reflection, "Marcus Webb, you gave me my first wound today, and I will sever your lifeline." Chen took another step deeper into Webb's kingdom. Now completely invisible, he was systematically excluded from meaningful duties, given only ineffective paperwork while sitting closest to Webb's office, under surveillance but without authority. Every night, Chen compared original documents with altered copies, cataloging discrepancies. Fuel, rations, medical supplies, equipment. Webb and Kane were systematically siphoning everything to fill their pockets. One afternoon, Chen witnessed Kane mercilessly beating a young Marine for an inadequate salute. Lieutenant Park courageously intervened, but Webb ended it with a single word, demonstrating his absolute control. That night, Chen visited the beaten Marine in the medical bay, leaving a protein bar, without questions. He understood the kingdom's structure. Webb as tyrant, Kane as whip, officers as silent accomplices, Marines as victims, and Park as the last remaining conscience. Chen identified Park as potential ally, the only light in this corrupted unit. He had to approach carefully, exploiting Park's internal conflict rather than direct contact. His opportunity came when an aging rifle exploded during training in Park's platoon. Webb immediately blamed Park despite his repeated equipment replacement requests being ignored. The funds had disappeared into Webb and Kane's pockets. That night, Chen quietly approached the dejected Park at the enlisted club. "Do you feel wronged?" Chen asked, refilling Park's glass. Park exploded with frustration. "Of course, but there's nothing I can do. This unit is like a massive wall. Every wall has cracks," Chen said softly. "To catch a lion, you must appear dead and wait for it to approach." Days later, Park came to Chen's quarters with a weathered notebook, his journal documenting every abuse and irregularity witnessed since arriving. "It's not perfect evidence, but it might help you, sir." Chen had found his ally. Park's journal transformed Chen's suspicions into concrete intelligence. The pattern that caught his attention: fuel theft. In the isolated environment, fuel meant untraceable profit, easily smuggled to civilian boats with minimal evidence. Chen decided to attack head-on, playing an overeager officer provoke Webb into revealing vulnerabilities. At the next operations meeting, Chen announced an ambitious training plan, requiring all vehicles fully fueled for weekend exercises. Webb's face twisted with displeasure. "We don't have fuel to waste on such inefficient training." Chen feigned innocence. "According to our records, our fuel reserves are adequate." When Chen emphasized, "according to our records," Webb's eyes narrowed dangerously. His fierce opposition confirmed Chen's suspicions. They were terrified of exposing depleted fuel reserves. That night, Kane visited Chen's quarters with expensive whiskey and an envelope of cash, clearly both bribe and warning. Chen accepted both, playing the perfect submissive role. Kane left satisfied. Chen's calculated provocation had worked. They'd exposed their Achilles heel. Chen studied the base layout, focusing on the remote supply gate closest to the fuel depot and coastline. If he were Webb, that would be the smuggling route, using communications inspection as cover. Chen and Sergeant Williams approached the gate. Chen examined the area methodically, finding oil-soaked soil and fuel drum remnants hidden in rock crevices. The puzzle aligned. Stolen fuel transported via a hidden path to civilian boats at predetermined times. Chen photographed every piece of evidence just as Kane emerged from a forest. Fortunately, Kane detected nothing unusual and departed. Chen had found the noose. Now he needed the smoking gun. Through Park's intelligence, Chen learned Kane maintained a secret office in an old warehouse where he documented everything meticulously. They planned infiltration during Kane's Wednesday evening meetings with civilian contractors, their only 2-hour window. Using specialized lockpicking skills, Chen gained entry while Park maintained watch. Abandoning the locked safe, Chen felt beneath the old desk and discovered a hidden black ledger. The notebook contained meticulous records, dates, amounts, transaction details, stolen supplies. This wasn't simple corruption. It was systematic theft devouring the entire unit. Chen photographed every page just as Park signaled Kane's early return. They escaped undetected. Chen possessed the evidence to destroy Webb's kingdom. Now he had to transmit it. During that night's defensive exercise, Chen and Park planned to infiltrate the communications tower under cover of training chaos. They moved like shadows through the darkness, using flares as concealment. When guards challenged them, Park's quick thinking about a security mission got them through. At the tower, Chen disabled motion sensors and picked the lock. Just as they prepared to enter, Park spotted Kane approaching with several Marines. Chen ordered Park to retreat. "If I don't return in 30 minutes, create chaos within the unit." Alone, Chen concealed himself inside the tower, laptop ready for transmission. Kane's voice grew closer outside. Chen deliberately kicked a metal cabinet, then stepped outside when Kane investigated. "Sergeant Major, conducting your patrol?" Kane immediately suspected Chen's true purpose, especially seeing the laptop. Recognition flashed. Chen's recent suspicious behavior, fuel obsession, everything aligned. Kane struck Chen with a rifle, ordering his capture. But Chen's plan was just beginning. He'd lured Kane into bringing him directly to Webb. In Webb's office, the colonel kicked Chen viciously upon seeing his condition. Was he a spy sent from headquarters? As they demanded information, an urgent voice interrupted. "Colonel, fire alarm in the ammunition depot." Webb and Kane's faces paled. A fire could destroy the entire base. They rushed out, leaving two guards with Chen. Park had kept his promise, triggering the alarm to create maximum chaos. Chen instantly subdued the distracted guards using specialized combat skills, retrieved his laptop, and escaped during the chaos as all personnel rushed toward the fire. Moving against the flow toward the communications tower, Chen's battered appearance served as camouflage in confusion. He reached the tower, connected to satellite equipment, and began transmitting encrypted files to General Stone. The transmission bar moved slowly. 50%, 60%. Kane's jeep roared up the mountain path. Through his megaphone, "It's over, Chen. Come out now." They surrounded the building, battering the door. Chen protected his laptop desperately as the door gave way and Kane's men poured in with weapons raised. Beaten mercilessly, Chen held on until the crucial message appeared. "Transmission complete." Chen smiled through the pain. "It's too late, Kane." Kane snatched the laptop, his face hardening with despair as he saw the confirmation screen. Then, a deafening roar of helicopters filled the darkness. Armed special forces appeared with blazing lights outside the tower windows. The thunder of judgment had descended upon Webb's kingdom. At Quantico, General Stone received Chen's encrypted files, hundreds of photos documenting Webb and Kane's systematic corruption. Stone immediately contacted the Marine Commandant. "Commander, it's time to draw our swords." Minutes later, Marine Military Police Special Forces boarded helicopters bound for Camp Scorpion. Black helicopters descended from the sky, seizing control of key strongholds. Special Forces moved like ghosts, subduing surprised Marines who thought it was training. Kane was trapped in the communications tower as flashbangs and tear gas filled the interior. Special Forces pinned him down and cuffed him, his eyes filled with disbelief. Webb was arrested at the ammunition depot, informed of charges including abuse of power, embezzlement, and cruelty. His impenetrable kingdom crumbled in hours. General Stone personally flew in, approaching the bloody but conscious Chen. Mission accomplished. Chen smiled faintly. "You've worked hard, Major. Rest now, we'll handle the rest." Under the dawn sky, the tyrants were dragged out as prisoners, while Marines watched with mixtures of fear, confusion, and hope. The joint investigation team swept through Camp Scorpion as soldiers trembled in barracks, afraid to speak after Webb's reign of terror. Park led the investigation, revealing everything he'd witnessed. His testimony opened floodgates as suppressed voices spilled out habitual beatings, abuse, embezzlement of supplies, forced labor on Webb's villa, cover-ups of injuries. Military tribunals swiftly convened. Despite denials, Webb and Kane's defenses crumbled against Chen's evidence and tearful Marine testimonies. Chen appeared as witness after hospital recovery, showing his scars while testifying about Webb's kingdom. They spoke of Marine honor while filling their own bellies with state resources and trampling young souls. Webb received 10 years imprisonment. Kane and accomplices heavy sentences. Higher-ranking officers who'd ignored corruption were disciplined, a warning against complacency. Camp Scorpion was rebuilt under new leadership, prioritizing communication and trust. Park chose to remain, helping wounded Marines heal. Chen was promoted to lieutenant colonel and assigned Operations Division at Marine Command, designing systemic reforms. His first document, Comprehensive Plans for Strengthening Marine Rights and Eradicating Corruption, on the small Pacific island. Morning sunlight was unusually dazzling. The long darkness had finally ended, and a new dawn was breaking over Marines.